till you see this. Wait till you see it discussed. Look at that. They're connected. And as you examine this closely, you will see there is actual rotation with this, and they are quite connected. This is not a lens flare. The lens flares never behave that way. There's never a one-to-one direct relationship with a lens flare as the camera's moving. Are you kidding me? Beautiful. Now, 431. Let's go down to the surface, shall we? What's going down below here? We have a shadow all the way around the balloon. If I would have gone back a little bit farther, in fact, I'm going to do that so you can see. Let me go back to about, what's up, Doc? 405. Look at the shadow completely around the balloon area. But outside the balloon area, where's that umbra penumbra? Where's that darkening that we should see and like on the horizon should get brighter? No umbra penumbra. None whatsoever. It's impossible to create that in real life with one light source and the distances shown, and it's definitely impossible in this video to see it. So there are so many more things, guys, that I'm not even touching on in this video that are going to be covered by the end of this week, I believe. So I'll leave you with that. Enjoy this video. Watch it all the way through. Pan up and down. Watch God in action, how he does it. There's source. There's the sun we see as a projection. Much more to come. Praise God. Thank you, guys. Take care. This is Rich, Mr. Thrive and Survive. It is October 11th, 2015, and this video will be part 2 of NASA and Science Busted by the lunar eclipse that we recently had. First, let me apologize to everybody where the music bothered you in the last video. I can assure you when I rendered before I rendered the video, the music was of a much better proportion of my voice to the music. I have no idea why Camtasia all of a sudden elevated the music after I had done it. So I will have to look into that. I do plan on doing videos with music in the background, but I will probably compile those and listen to them first to make sure they have the correct mixture like I had it first. If people are still bothered by it then maybe I'll remove it. But, if it's just one or two, I like the idea of having music in the video. But like I said, I apologize for everybody because I know it didn't turn out the right mixture at all last time. And I can assure you that when I listened to it before I compiled it and rendered it, it was doing just fine. I should use the word render because compile is an old programmer's type of language that I still carry over, so I shouldn't use that because I'm not programming this. The second thing I want to mention is I need to explain what happened with that last video because I've changed the exact title of it a couple times and I have removed it and put it back. And let me explain what happened with that video. I did that in 3 different segments. And the last segment you actually never saw, and I didn't realize that at first. The last segment was okay, here's the deal. So when I rendered it, I was actually like, wow, that really rendered fast, and uploaded it, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it. I came back to it a little bit later, started looking at the comments, and I didn't even say much at first, and I think I just went to bed or whatever because I was like, well, they just missed it or whatever, the early commenters. And then later on, it was, the same thing. Everybody was telling me, you don't understand, Rich, that the shadow of the Earth should be much larger. Now, you're talking about those who believe in the traditional model. The Earth would be huge compared to, what you're showing there because at first you're showing that, I talked about the sun and the moon and how it just happens to be a coincidence that roughly the sun and the moon have a 400-to-1 ratio as far as size and distance. And I mentioned that, and then I went into the other eclipse. And by the way, for I got to mention a couple things about comments. They don't bother me, guys. Don't worry about it. I'm not bothered by the comments, but there's a couple things I just have to point out now and then about them. I was not trying to show the sun and called oil changing to the. And here they show, without a doubt, that they, at best, were in low Earth orbit, if not in another room doing this. I don't know where they were. They definitely weren't in outer space on their way to the moon like they said they were, halfway to the moon, because it showed them then removing the object that made the Earth a nice little circle, and they backed the camera away, or they opened up the aperture rather, and opened up the lighting in the cabin, and you could see that the entire window was filled with blue and white of a low orbit at best Earth. They had faked you out. And then you had the person, remember the director saying to Neil Armstrong, because he didn't talk on cue, talk. Then he answered, Neil Armstrong started talking. And people want to believe NASA. And then I showed a video about parallax. About, no doubt about it, it's a mathematical certainty that the things they were saying were 300 kilometers away were only 30 kilometers away, if that. Or not, I'm sorry, 300 kilometers away were only 30 meters away in some cases, or 100 meters. There was no doubt about it. Once you have a parallax picture and you can tell if you know the height or the size of something, and you know the difference between the first along with this. So this is how NASA's busted. Well, it could be perspective and it could be different things. So they fake this, and people still defend NASA and science. Even in my video. Well, of course, they didn't see part 3, but what I'm saying is before we even got this far, why are you defending it? Compare it to me if I would have launched one video that was fake, lifted one video that was fake, put it on video on YouTube, lifted it from another site, that's what I mean, stolen it. If I would have faked you out one time. And yet they're faking you out all the time. Now here's the point. Here's NASA. Here's why NASA's busted. Look at the size of the Earth from the moon, guys. Look at the size of the Earth from the moon. Is that going to cause a humongously wide shadow on the moon? Is that what we saw? No. Well, it could be perspective and it could be different things. Well, let's take a look at a couple other little things. You people who want to defend science and NASA to the hilt. It just amazes me, and yet I get hammered if I don't show the right perspective from the sun to the moon from 93 million miles away. And that's not even the point of the video. And yet the same people will defend this and say that made a huge, unbelievably huge shadow on the moon. An umbra and a penumbra. Oh, I got that. Yeah, I got several things about that. So let's take a look at a few other things here. Okay, here we go. How many witnesses do you need, guys? Let's not do a still photo. Let's take an actual film clip. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, pictures of the moon from the pictures of the Earth from the moon, they're starting to grow. They're starting to get larger and larger and larger. Because NASA realizes now they've made the mistake. They've made the mistake of making the Earth look just like the moon does in our sky. They forgot to make it 400% bigger, didn't they? So this, see the arc angle? See the arc angle that should have been projected onto the moon? Do you see how NASA's busted now? Or are you still going to argue the point? Witness number 2. Look at this. What cracks me up about this is what most of them is. You got about a 90% cloud cover on the Earth. Thank God it's not the Earth. It'll be raining all over the place. Right around the, I don't know if this is supposed to be how it's oriented, but it's either the equator or right along, let's say, the international date line. I don't know, somewhere. Has a clear spot, but everybody pretty much is
4, 3,
Noah's flood's
2, 1.
crazy stuff. Oh, here's another thing that's starting to happen too. See how flat the lunar surface is, and some of the still